Hello, listeners. This is Yukta speaking, your host for today's episode, which is the discussion between Sachin Gaur and Dinesh C Sharma. Sachin Gaur is Director Operations at InnovatioCuris Private Limited, and Dinesh C Sharma is an award-winning journalist, author, and media trainer with over 35 years' experience of reporting on science and technology, health and environment for national and international media outlets. This discussion is part of the 11th IC Innovator Club virtual meeting, hosted on the topic Young Innovators. Let us hear the discussion.
Yeah, so just for our viewers and participants today, Dinesh ji is an award-winning journalist, and we have been talking about his book. I don't know if you have a copy of the book. Maybe you could have shown it to us. So I just bought it on Kindle. So it's called India Innovation Not Jugaad. In fact, this is your second book, if I'm not wrong. The first book was on called The Outsourcer, or uh, it was on the Indian IT industry. And I think book is just one manifestation of your knowledge. But I think all your life you have been reporting on science and technology, and that's probably gives you this wide, view on how our society is evolving. In fact, I was reading the introduction of your book, and I was quite fascinated to find a lot of linkages which probably me and you share in a platonic way, because I could find that you have read Walter Isaacson and you have referred Professor Anil Gupta and many other things. But at the same time, I should admit I have not read your book yet, and it looks like there are so many people that you mentioned which are unsung heroes of innovation in India. So I definitely look forward to read your book. But to start with you, Dinesh ji, writing on science and technology, was that cool thing to do 35 years back?
Yes and no, because my first choice was to do journalism as such. And it so happened that when I joined journalism in 1984 with the Press Trust of India, which is wire agency, they were starting this. They had started a couple of years before that the PTI Science Service, which was a very unique, kind of a endeavor at that time to collect information of what is happening in Indian scientific institutions and supply that to the newspaper. As you know, PTI is a supplier of news to uh, different news outlets. So I happened to join that, and so I started my journey in science journalism at that point. So and then, of course, in the 90s, I digressed into IT, telecom, and things like that. I covered the Earth Summit in 1992 at Rio. Then 2 decades later, I had a chance to go to the Arctic. I've written another book on that, my travelogue on Arctic, where uh, I was at the ground zero of climate change, you can say, spending time on an icebreaker as a stage which was collecting data. So it's been a journey like that. So I've been broadly writing on science, technology, you can say, environment and medicine and things like that.
So just that I'm slightly closer to the Arctic. I'm in Oslo, Norway right
I
now.
was told that, yeah.
So it's good to know that you have been here in this part of the world. And
In fact, the second time I went to Arctic, it was to the Arctic University.
oh yeah,
So
to
first time I
Tromsø.
went from the Canadian side for the ice to stay on the icebreaker, but the second time was a visit to the Arctic University. That
So
was
was it
3, 4
was
years
it
back.
in Tromsø? Were you
Tromso,
in?
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I have been into Tromsø. It's a great place. So just carrying forward this conversation. So when you started and now, I think now I see Professor Vijay Raghavan talking a lot about science communication, and apparently, at least from government's perspective, I think science communication is becoming a big thing. So what has changed in your opinion? I mean, if you look at India as a country, uh, do you really see, I mean, apart from numbers, that the change in innovation, our uptake or our generation of innovation, is that changing, or what's your point of view there?
No, I'm sure a lot has changed in the past, say, 3, 4 decades. And one of the speakers was pointing about the internet speed. So I'm reminded he was lucky to get 600 kbps. And when I got my first internet connection in 1994 or 95, the BSNL was the only service provider. The speed was, say, 56 kbps, which is dial up, and we had to wait for a long time. So of course, things have happened a lot since then. And in fact, if you go back, when we have seen the times when, even getting a landline telephone was a tall order. So the communication revolution, I think, has really changed a lot of things. And that's one of the things. And secondly, we have put a lot of public money into S&T. If you look at the science and technology infrastructure, it has grown tremendously. And every decade we have had new institutions coming up. It's not as if the first round of institution building, which started soon after independence, IITs, IIM, it was stopped at that point. No, institutions were added. For example, ICERS is the latest edition a few years back, which is a very robust institution. So we have constantly innovated and in our S&T, in building our S&T infrastructure. And I think that has been at the backbone. The inflection point of innovation, revolution, or this new ecosystem which we are seeing is actually building upon our investments in education, investment in S&T infrastructure, investment in building a research, capability. So those we are building upon that backbone, so to say.
So coming specifically to this book of yours about India Innovation Not Jugaad, although you have given some context of why you wrote this book, but maybe I still want to ask you this: why did you write this book, and for whom?
Yeah, I think this idea has been there for quite some time. As I said, having been in this profession for long, you've seen many things yourself change. So, and those are the things which have touched the lives of people. I mean, those are the innovations or innovative and transformative ideas which have touched the lives of the people. So I thought, let us document that. That was one reason that I've seen that journey myself for a long time. Second was that I was getting an impression that whenever there was a talk about innovation in India, this thing called Jugaad comes into the discussion, which is a bad thing, I would say. And in fact, I've been interacting, you mentioned about Professor Anil Gupta, so I've been meeting a lot of those grassroots innovators and award winners whenever they used to come to Delhi or the exhibition. So, and constantly there was a feeling that what people may not be educated, they may not come from a formal educational institution, but they had ideas. But at times they also were, having worked in several media houses, one would also come across a lot of these so-called innovations which come to you saying that हमने ये कर दिया है, हमने ये कर दिया है, that kind of a thing, and people try to put that out in the media. So that kind of created a wrong mindset or even a wrong impression in a popular culture, which media and movies like Three Idiots and people have contributed to that popular culture, that we have always believed in this thing called Jugaad, which is a bad thing. So I really wanted to portray, shrug off that image, I would say. In fact, some management gurus have also called that Indian innovation is actual Jugaad. But when they're talking of that, they're talking of frugal innovation. So frugal innovation is not Jugaad. Jugaad is something which is a quick fix, a transient kind of a thing, which is not sustainable. It may be harmful to some people. So that is the kind of a correction I wanted to do. So then the idea developed that let us also go beyond S&T. See, normally when you're talking of innovation, you're talking of technology, you're talking of, some product and things like that. So the idea was that innovation has been there in several sectors. So then we started looking and identifying, so for example, you'll find here things which happened in the social sector, things have happened in the culture eras, things which have happened in the people's movement. So those are also innovative ideas, and they have really made a change in respective fields. So putting together all this, I thought, let's do this. And then, of course, 75th year was a good landmark so that we look back, and we also tend to lose focus at times that, okay, things which are there a part of your day-to-day life, we don't kind of recognize that the journey has been that long for in some of those innovations. For example, one very small example, which is a marketing from the field of marketing. See, the eggs which are available all over India today, the egg market was not like this all the time. And there were cartels working. And I know the one egg used to cost 3 rupees or 5 rupees on one place, and another place it could cost 15 rupees. And so a simple innovation of having a uniform marketing, uniform rate in different markets through use of communication. That time STD phones had just become available. So Dr. B.V. Rao made use of that. he created a network of farmers. So it was a marketing idea, connecting people so that, you don't sell below a certain price and you don't go above a certain price. So that made eggs available all over India at a uniform price. So there were ideas like that, which we needed to recognize, I thought. So that's why I put those ideas as well.
So I see that in your book, many innovations are not like led by a single person, but they are like happening over a period of time, which probably we cannot credit one single person, but it's like a, what is a phenomena in development. And I think when we see like, let's say earlier, probably in typical West, that a lot of young people would, build game changing companies like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg has done. And now we see, for example, the average age probably in India is also coming down. Like we have good examples of Harman and Abhik here. I don't know, the future will tell, but do you see that any change or I mean, of course, from your book's perspective, you wanted to take a historical look, but do you also have any opinion on future to come? Like what is there for India? Do you see any trends or uh, any thing during your research that you must have stumbled upon, or if you like to share any perspective here?
Yeah, of course. I have looked at the macro level and I talked about some examples, but I also looked at some of the micro things. For example, foldoscope is one of the products which I have mentioned. The origami kind of a microscope which you can put together, which costs $1. It is really
Right.
revolutionizing
Manu
how
Lab
science
from
education
Harvard,
can
right?
be changed. It's such a frugal Manu, yeah. So it's such a frugal innovation, but it's still it is using high tech and it does involve. So, but it did come out of one single lab, and there were people behind it, a few of them. But it takes a long time. Innovation chain has to go through a dissemination process also. I mean, innovation was done, but how do you disseminate it? How do you manufacture those things? How do you make it available? How do you make the science teachers and students make use of it? In fact, even some of the scientists are making use of it, and it can be also be applied as a medical tool for diagnostic facility and diagnostic tool in areas where there are no diagnostic facilities available. So innovation also has a kind of a life beyond once it is marketed. So it finds applications on its own at times. So those are the kind of things also I have looked. And of course, the ecosystem has changed, as Dr. Gambhir has spoken already about this ecosystem. And when some of the innovations which I have talked, I mean, for a long time, our management institutions, technologies, forget about incubation. We didn't have any formal systems or mechanisms to promote innovation or promote even innovative thinking, as Harman very rightly talked. There's a process, but nobody talked about it. So that innovation, that ecosystem has changed. I think that is going to throw up a number of new ideas, new companies, new processes, and that's what is going to happen. Maybe if I write a sequel of it, my book 20 years later, all these ideas, more ideas would be certainly there. Maybe 10 years later, because a lot of things are still in the pipeline and things are happening every day. It's quite revealing that you have these two young innovators, and you must have also seen the recent edition of Shark Tank India. So you see that people are bubbling with ideas. Every idea need not become a business. See,
Right.
one thing which I think people should remember, young innovators, that you don't start with the mindset or a goal that I want to become a unicorn, because some of these valuations and those things are not really, people get carried away by all that. So that should not be the focus. I mean, you want to do something, you want to solve a real problem, and you want to make a change. I think that should be the goal. So that's happening in a
Indeed,
lot of
sir.
manners.
Indeed. So from your book, if you were to pick one innovation which is your favorite, I know it's difficult, because if you have written 100, then all 100 are your favorite. But which one will be that? And since we are more focused on healthcare in InnovatioCuris, I'd also like to know which is your favorite healthcare innovation.
It's both the question. questions are very difficult, but the first one I'll not pick. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Yes, I
am I
can.
audible?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're audible.
I don't see the box. Anyway, so yeah, so I pick up a set of innovation broadly falling under the category of communication and ICTs, I would say, information and communication revolution, because that is where those are the kind of things which have changed the lives of people, which have touched the lives of people, and that started not at a time when people had access to devices. Today, everybody, I mean, not everybody, but a sizable number of people, 300 million people, if I remember right, have access to a smartphone. So today, people have an access to the device, but the technology started touching the lives of people when people didn't have the device was not necessary. For example, the railway reservation. I think it was quite a game changer. The very thought of computerizing and making it, accessible to people. You could book any ticket anywhere, anytime, and that kind of revolutionized and that changed. I mean, the number of people who travel by Indian Railways in a year is humongous. So that was one innovation that changed. Then another one would be the Bhumi, which really led to a number of similar innovation like the computerization of land records, I would say. Then C dot, which is kind of a backbone for all the telecom. So that was in the first phase when the access to device was not necessary, but you felt the impact. Banking computerization, it was a huge thing. I mean, you deposit a check today, it would have taken 15 days for it to get in cash. Today it is instant. So that has changed. So that is a set of that's the set of innovations I would pick up. And you mentioned about the healthcare. So I mean, again, it's difficult to pick one, but we have just been through the pandemic, or we are still in the process. So one can pick up the whole process of the set of ideas which led to making medicines and vaccines affordable to India. Those are the two. I mean, you look at the average age at the time of independence and look at the average age now, and look at the impact of vaccines, which we have seen during the pandemic. Every Indian has got, and the billions of doses and things like that, and the cost of medicines, one of the cheapest affordable generic medicines we have. So those are the innovations which I'll really pick up in the health sector. Then you mentioned about the Arvind model. So that is again trying to deliver a service in a totally different way. And in fact, the heart surgery prices coming down not long back. I mean, we had people going from here to Texas, and one of the largest group of patients who went to Texas Heart Institute for South Asians, and out of that, Indians were the large. And today we have the traffic coming back. So there's been a total change, and that has occurred because of not just because of the policy, but because of innovative way of running hospitals. There are multiple innovations part of making this service affordable. So that has really changed things in the health sector, I would say. And of course, now we have the M-Health, and there's another set of revolution with the pandemic has also shown us that telemedicine can be worked out, and there are a lot of mini and micro stuff happening in the telemedicine field.
Yeah, I guess, sir, if you write the sequel of this book 20 years from now, I guess you are going to have a Herculean task. If everything what Mohit is doing and what we see the signal from Harman and Abhik, I guess you need to choose probably from a million.
Yes.
If you have to still do 100 list, I guess still choosing 100 may be difficult for you. But I guess just for our audience, where they can find your book is, I guess I bought it from Amazon, but is there any easy way to get it or anything that you would like to mention here?
Yeah, that is the easiest way, because both the Kindle edition and the print edition are shipping from there, and other platforms also it is available. And I think it's soon going to be in the stores also, number of stores in India, because the book is out now just for 3 weeks. So that chain is being set up. So
Yeah, in fact, I discovered it through social media, and
Oh,
so I think the people who are talking about your book, I think it's a good thing. So you should be happy that the word of mouth is really working. And if not was your book, probably we wouldn't be speaking today. Otherwise we knew you through the company, but I think it was a very nice opportunity to encash your knowledge and get the message out. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sachin Gaur and Dinesh C Sharma. To watch the complete club meeting on this topic, visit the link in the description below. Subscribe to the channel to get instant access to all the podcasts. Follow us on social media through the links available in the description below. Thank you all for spending your time in listening to this week's podcast. Look out for a new episode every Wednesday, published on Google Podcast, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. If you're interested in hosting our podcast with us, fill the form available in the description below. Thank you once again. See you next time.